think his friend later today for the office. After lunch. Yeah, sit, can stay.
Okay, shall we begin? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Habibie Center, and thank you for joining us both in person and also online for today's roundtable discussion on the topic of Indonesia and BRICS, learning from the Indian experience. My name is Indira. I am a researcher at the ASEAN Studies program here at the Habibie Center, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's event. It is with my great pleasure to extend a warm welcome, and we are truly honored to be joined today by His Excellency Sandeep Chakravorti, the Ambassador of India to Indonesia, Dr. Ilham Habibie, the Chairman of the Board of Trustees, the Habibie Center, and also His Excellency Rajiv Bhatia, Distinguished Fellow at the Foreign Policy Studies Program, Gateway House, and former Indian Ambassador to Myanmar and Mexico, who later will also share his thoughts and speak on today's topic. And also, yes. Oh, yeah, ambassadors to Indonesia as well? The Deputy Ambassador, okay. And our distinguished guests who have been joining us today. We are very grateful for your presence today, and we look forward to have an enriching exchange of perspective in today's discussion. As many of you may already know, Indonesia has officially joined BRICS earlier this year, marking a significant milestone in our foreign policy. Indonesia is now the first country in Southeast Asia to become a full member of the organization. With one of the region's largest economies, the membership opens up promising opportunities for Indonesia to have cooperation across various sectors, including trade, investment, sustainable development, connectivity, and many others. Beyond the economic dimension, Indonesia's membership in BRICS also offers a valuable platform to strengthen its diplomatic position globally. However, it also comes with its own set of challenges, especially in the context of an increasingly complex and uncertain global political and economic landscape. In today's roundtable, we will explore the evolution of BRICS, assess what it has achieved so far, and also consider what its growing influence means for other developing countries. We will also be discussing how BRICS represents and advances the interests of the Global South, and moreover, we will also unpack how Indonesia could maximize the opportunity of its membership, particularly by drawing lessons from India's experience as one of the founding countries of the organization. And perhaps, and also more curiously, we will also discuss how BRICS could remain relevant and responsive in navigating the challenges, shifting dynamics, increasing multipolarity, and also uncertainty in our current global political economy. Now, to help us set the stage for this timely discussion, I would like to invite Dr. Ilham Habibie, the Chairman of the Board of Trustees, the Habibie Center, to deliver his opening remarks. Pak Ilham, you have approximately 5 minutes to deliver your opening remarks. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of India to Indonesia, Mr. Sandeep Chakravorti, also Your Excellency, the Bhatia, who has served in Indonesia but also in other countries and is now a fellow of the Gateway House, distinguished guests and representatives from Habibie Center, and all other guests that I don't mention one by one. It's good to all have you here today. I'm very happy to be here today and listen in and participate in this very interesting topic, Indonesia and BRICS. If I may give a few comments about what I personally think about this, just aforehand, just very quickly, because I have 5 minutes. When I first heard that Indonesia would join BRICS, I was like, have mixed feelings, frankly speaking. I know from the history of BRICS that BRICS started actually not really as something else but an investment idea of somebody within Goldman Sachs, who thought that it would be good for investors to look at these 5 countries, which have now been more than, there are some other joining, but it came from an investment perspective, not really politics or any coordination in terms of economics. It developed into something else now. Yeah? And I think that is what we're going to hear. From the Indonesian perspective, from my limited knowledge, because I'm not a political scientist, but what I know is that Indonesia is one of the initiators and for sure the host of the so-called Bandung Conference in 1955, which I think by and large Indonesia's attitude and philosophy on the international scene is very much related to that. So that spirit that was founded in 1955, which originally was coined as the so-called third world, because there was the first world with the Western countries, the second with the Eastern countries, and everybody else was just the third world, which the term third world became later something else. It was more for underdeveloped nations, not so much an alternative to the first and second world. Now, if you look into the BRICS, we have actually two, besides India, Brazil, and South Africa. Russia is a former member of the second world. And China, of course, was one of the founders, but now, in the context of the today's geopolitics, is definitely not at the level of a developed nation anymore. In fact, it is the other big country that wants to have an enormous influence in the world, which some of us maybe look at it with some skepticism as well. At the same time, there's also hope. It's a mixed feeling. Yeah? So basically, this combination is very complicated in my view. Yeah? The Russians, by themselves, they are not only not anymore representing the so-called second world, but they have become a major factor, particularly regarding Europe. Yeah? So it's not an easy club of countries that might have very little in common, actually, if you look at it. I mean, not to say about the form of statehood that they believe in. Some of them are open democracies like India and Indonesia, and Brazil as well. Russia, definitely not so, and China as well, neither. And so it is, and from an economic perspective, sometimes it is being coined as being the anti-dollar club. They want to basically de-dollarize the economy. Whether it's possible or not, we don't know, but that is another thing that some people have in mind if they talk about BRICS. So all of that made me very skeptical. Nevertheless, I think we should be open-minded and see what are the things we can do in order to move our country ahead. I mean, Indonesia joins usually international organizations. I think the other one that is in everybody's mind at the moment is, of course, OECD. OECD has a very diverse. We both were part of the Bandung experience, Bandung spirit. So I think it's very relevant to have this discussion today. And so I'm very looking forward to that. Thank you very much for everybody's attendance. So just a few comments from my side, and I give it back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ilham, for a very thoughtful opening remarks, and it was really nice, and it was really nicely set the tone for our discussion today. Thank you so much, Pak Ilham. Next, I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome His Excellency Sandip Chakravorti, the Ambassador of India to Indonesia, to also deliver his opening remarks. Mr. Ambassador, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, Selamat Pagi. Thank you, Indira. I'll begin by thanking the Habibie Center, Dr. Ilham Habibi and Dr. Ansori for hosting this event at a short notice. I must confess that Ambassador Bhatia is in Indonesia and Jakarta, primarily not for this. He has come for the commemoration of the Bandung conference. He is attending several events for that. But when I came to know his coming here, I realized that I know for sure that he has been an astute follower of several processes, including G20, BRICS, BIMSTEC. So I thought, and I have been reading since Indonesia joined BRICS. There has been a debate in Indonesia about the merits of joining BRICS, and that debate has been very lively, and Dr. Habibi has referred to that in his remarks. And there has been some confusion in the sense, what are the merits of being a part of BRICS? Does it collide with Indonesia's ambitions to become a member of the OECD? And not many answers were forthcoming. The basic question which many people asked me was, what is the benefit of becoming a member of BRICS? And Dr. Habibi very nicely mentioned that it's not a club, easy club. There's a lot of variety in the membership, and sometimes the members may be at odds with each other. Particularly in the recent past, as you know, we have had issues with China, and then Russia has issues with some other countries, maybe outside BRICS. So it is not an easy club, but Indonesia moved with alacrity in the new administration, and Indonesia, we supported Indonesia's membership of BRICS, and Indonesia became the first member in this year. So this debate has been going on, so I thought no better person than Ambassador Bhatia to come and talk about it. What has been our experience? I heard the same question being asked to our foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, and he just said that look at us, look at India. Has our diplomatic stature anyway declined by being part of BRICS? In fact, it has increased over the years, and India's diplomat, Indonesia, the leadership, and the several institutions that exist in both countries. One example I will give is that there are 21 working groups within BRICS, and there are 15 ministerial meetings. So, together to define the agenda, and we need not, I can quote my minister saying that BRICS is not an anti-Western group. I think that is very important to remember, and neither Indonesia nor India is anti-Western. So we may be non-Western, but we are not anti-Western. So we have to be, we will moderate the agenda within BRICS, and I think these are the that we have. From a bilateral perspective, we are very happy that Indonesia is part of BRICS, and what India has gained from BRICS, we are looking forward to listening from our keynote speaker. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for your insightful remarks. Now we will proceed to the main session of today's roundtable discussion. We are truly honored to be joined by His Excellency Rajiv Bhatia, who will serve as our resource person for this session. As I briefly mentioned earlier, His Excellency Rajiv Bhatia is a distinguished fellow at the Foreign Policy Studies Program, Gateway House. He has over 37 years of experience at the Indian Foreign Service and has previously served as the Indian Ambassador to Myanmar and Mexico, as well as a High Commissioner to Kenya, South Africa, and Lesotho. His Excellency has also published several books, including India in Global Affairs, Perspective from Sapru House in 2002. Today, Mr. Ambassador will share his insight on the topic of our roundtable, Indonesia and BRICS, Learning from Indian Experience. Following his presentation, we will also open the floor for a Q&A session. And for those of you joining us online through YouTube, we also encourage you to drop your questions on the comment box. Without further ado, Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Salamat Pagi, and thank you very much, Habibie Center and Ambassador Sandeep Chakravorti for conceiving and taking the initiative for this very special interaction, very timely interaction as well. I bring to you greetings from the friendly land of India and also from our think tank Gateway House, which is located in Mumbai, and it has done very extensive studies of the subject, BRICS, over a number of years. I feel extremely delighted of the institution. And as far as the Indonesian angle is concerned, I think our task is simple. We are not discussing whether Indonesia should join or not join BRICS. The decision has been taken, and this decision has been taken very, in my view, swiftly and wisely. And you would see that that makes it a very timely. I would say timely for several reasons. First of all, as we know, the next summit of BRICS is taking place in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and this will be the first summit for Indonesia. Also, this interaction is timely because seismic changes are taking place in the global order. Clearly, more and more multipolarity is coming, and therefore some of these plurilateral institutions such as BRICS will certainly have a great deal of relevance. And of course, we should call a spade a spade. The US President has really made BRICS very famous by his observations. Many people had not heard of BRICS before, but once you announce that BRICS is dead, then the onus is on BRICS to prove whether it is live and kicking or it is dead. So we'll find out. I think that is basically what it is. So we have the challenge as to how objectively interpret BRICS. There's so many of plurilateral institutions going around. All that I can say is that for India, it is one of the top 6 institutions of which we are members. We are members of many, many more. But if I have to count them on my finger on one hand, I would say G20, Quad, BRICS, SCO, BIMSTEC, Gulf Cooperation Council, maybe 1 or 2 more, and certainly India-ASEAN mechanisms. These are the ones which define the Indian foreign policy, India's interaction with the world. So BRICS comes fairly at the top of the groupings. Now it's important to have a quick look at a little bit of history. Mr. Habibi already pointed out, but before moving forward, as I sit next to you, sir, let me pay my personal tribute to your father, Dr. Habibi, whom I had the chance and opportunity to know in my time when I served as Deputy Ambassador in the embassy in Jakarta. He was dedicated to the cause of science and technology. And he was dedicated to the cause of the future of Indonesia. And we know what an important role he played in the transition and leading the country towards democracy. So in that context, you yourself referred to this whole business of someone back in 2001, O'Neill, talking about BRIC. And when this says BRICS here is actually the S is small, not big. And so this was very much, as you rightly said, an investor's point of view. And the paper basically had said back then that these 4 countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, were the emerging economies, and they would become very, very important economies, and they would play a very big role in the world of finance and economy. And later, in the recent years, when that actually, according to him, had not happened, then he became very disenchanted with his own so-called creation. So anyway, especially Western scholars particularly like to stress the stream of Goldman Sachs. But then we know that history is often more complex than that. There are 2 other streams also we should refer. One is the IPSA stream. IPSA is another grouping, as you know, India, Brazil, South Africa. And this goes back to about 2003. And this was working quite well in the initial years. One democracy from each continent. India from Asia, Brazil from Latin America, South Africa from Africa. And yet it was at a nascent stage when I was still the High Commissioner in South Africa. And this is a story which is often not known. Our Foreign Minister Pranab Mukherjee came visiting South Africa, and we had advance information that Chinese government was working on seeking entry into IPSA. So they wanted IPSA to become a 4-power grouping. And so when these 3 foreign ministers met, India, Brazil, South Africa, we found South Africa suggesting that in order to increase the weight of IPSA, let us have China into it. We were ready with our response, and Brazil and India conveyed that we'll be glad to do so, but please remember, IPSA is the forum of democracies. So once China becomes a democracy, there would be no difficulty whatsoever in bringing into IPSA. That killed China's chances completely, and then they acted on their plan B, which was then to bring South Africa into what we call the third stream, which I don't know whether it's figuring here or not. Yes, this is the third stream, which is the RIC, R-I-C, RIC. And so Russia, India, China were already discussing for almost 15 to 20 years, an idea which began with Foreign Minister of Russia, Mr. Primakov. So then basically what essentially happened was that South Africa was brought in and Brazil was brought in, and essentially first it was BRIC without South Africa. Then when South Africa was brought in, it became BRICS. This was the, so essentially if there is a research scholar dedicated to the study of BRICS, then he or she can have a look at the three streams, the Thomas O'Neill stream, the RIC stream and IPSA stream, and then decide for yourself as to how each of these things affected. Essentially, they were all happening in the first decade of this century. So then you had some 16 summits. We don't have to go into all of them, but I thought of some of the famous summits I could mention. One was Fortaleza in Brazil, which is on the left, where I think the decision to establish the new development bank was set up. And then there was the very much the summit in China, which brought in President Jacob Zuma for the first time from South Africa. And then there was a summit in 2016 hosted by India in Goa, where following the tradition, India arranged an interaction between BRICS leaders and BIMSTEC leaders. BIMSTEC is South Asia and Southeast Asia. And so that in turn created a special energy for our neighbors as well. And also there have been last two summits, they have been particularly landmark summits. Johannesburg summit, because that agreed on expansion, and the last one, which was Kazan summit in Russia. So once again, a scholar working on BRICS will have to go through the documents of each summit, and I want to mention, which I am sure many people know but others may not know, University of Toronto has an excellent website, which is Information Center on BRICS. If you're looking for original documents, you don't have to go anywhere else. They keep all this right there, and then it becomes very easy for young scholars to study every single summit's decisions. I think it is important to go back to the original sources. So in that context, let us have a quick look at the data picture. I have many slides, but I just brought two for you because I didn't want you to be scared off from data. On BRICS, there's a huge amount of data available. This is just the basic data about the population, area, GDP growth. The point to note is that BRICS has some of the largest countries in the world. In terms of population, India and China. In terms of area, Russia and Brazil. And now, of course, the new countries have come in. 5 were there already, as you know, and then 5 were brought in after Johannesburg summit. So it really is adding up to the magnitude and gravitas of this grouping. It's becoming more and more important. This one is another interesting table which shows comparison between G7 and BRICS. because there is obviously a comparison and contrast between the two of them. The critical point to note here is that in terms of share of GDP of the world, G7 is still 51% and BRICS is only 33%. But this is on nominal GDP. I'm told that if you take into account PPP model of or basis of GDP of the world, then BRICS touches or almost surpasses G7. So something is happening in the world economy where the share of G7 is falling and the share of BRICS is going up. This is the important thing to know, because once economic indicators start showing you a particular scene, then the rest follows. And the other point also to note is G7 actually shrinking. You remember it was G8 earlier. Russia was part of it, then Russia was expelled. And so there are 7. And on top of that, in the world that we live in the past 3 months, G7 is badly fractured. You have US on one side and G6 on the other side on many issues. So if you're talking of stresses and strains within a grouping, G7 really is particularly victim of it. On the other hand, BRICS, which was just 5 members until 2022, 2023, has now gone up to 11 members, and that is another story. So I can conclude that BRICS is an upcoming organization, and Indonesia and friends of Indonesia should have every reason to be proud that you have joined a ship which is going somewhere and which is growing in size. So let there be no skepticism or pessimism about joining BRICS. BRICS has a future. Now let us discuss this expansion story. You know, I'm really very grateful to our ambassador, who, despite his busy schedule, finds time to read so much, you know, in terms of research writings. I have been following BRICS when I was still in the service as High Commissioner to South Africa. I was there for 3 years, and I was fascinated by these two bodies, IPSA and BRICS. In both, South Africa was a member, and this was the time when they were all growing up, so you really felt that you were contributing a little bit to the emergence of these bodies. And so the point that I'm making is that the first expansion was when the grouping became 4 to 5, and this was back in 2010. And the second then happened in 2022-23 period, that is the Joburg Summit. And this was very interesting. BRICS offered membership to 6 countries, and one of them refused, Argentina. And the other one, Saudi Arabia, accepted but refused to function as a full member. They have been attending meetings except the summit, and they don't talk. They say, we just are here to listen. So only the other 4 countries, Egypt, Ethiopia, UAE and Iran, they accepted the membership, and that was very good. And then at Kazan summit, you know, there was still a long queue outside the summit room. President Putin said 34 countries are waiting to join BRICS. And this is the point I'll make, that before you jump to any conclusions about the effectiveness and achievements of BRICS, you have to wonder why so many countries want to join BRICS. There must be something attracting them and drawing them. So in Kazan, obviously, while there was pressure from one side, I think mainly China, to open up the doors and bring in more member states, the decision was that no, now we would go a bit slow But we knew that people were standing, nations were standing outside. So 13 countries were brought in under a new category, and it is called the partner state category. You have the list, flags are here, somehow list was there, seems to have disappeared, but it's very easy to find out. So this was the other. But the most dramatic thing happened about your own country. So in the list of 13, the name of Indonesia figures. So normally you would come in as a partner state. But there was an earlier decision taken by BRICS to offer membership to Indonesia. And at that time, the then president took the line that we have to consult ASEAN. We were all very puzzled in Delhi as to why Indonesia was, a little hesitant. But we understood that there must be some internal reasons. But the moment the new president came in, President Prabowo Subianto, who I must add is widely seen in India as a foreign policy president, a man who has a clear idea, a clear worldview in which Indonesia has a much bigger role to play. So he, I think, visited Brazil, and he said, look, you people have decided, we are ready to accept it. So that's how you came in, and the debate therefore was settled for good, whether or not it would be a time for Indonesia to join BRICS. So we move from that position. So mainly the color is a bit of a problem, but let me explain to you. John Curtin is my favorite expert and resource person when it comes to BRICS. Same website which I mentioned to you. We have met him. He's been to Delhi, and he also is, by the way, an expert on G20. So anybody who is studying here G20 or BRICS, you can consult his writings. Mainly the mission, and he quotes it from various declarations, suggest that the idea is very much helping emerging economies to get to play a bigger role in the world. So if Indonesia sees itself as an emerging economy, there should be no hesitation whatsoever. Another point, reform of multilateral institutions. Indonesia's position is very clear. It made its mind very clear at G20 when you were the president, and again when we were the president and Brazil were the president. So reform is very important, not just of MDBs, multilateral development banks, but other institutions as well. And then in terms of intra-BRICS cooperation. So this is the fundamental mission, and basically I have brought in a little bit of the reference to the priorities of the Brazilian presidency, and I think they are talking partly influenced by their own G20 priorities. So they want very special focus on health cooperation, and then some of the newer stuff like artificial intelligence and also security and economic reforms, etc. So when we talk later about Brazil, I think Indonesia will have to have a very good interaction with them. So now in this context, Ambassador particularly advised me that can you pinpoint what are the achievements, what has this body achieved starting from 2006 when the foreign ministers met. It's now going to be about 18 or 19 years old. There have been 15, 16 summits. So I thought it hard, and I came to the conclusion that the very first achievement is that it has stayed alive and it has expanded. Sometimes the BRICS scholars themselves are skeptical whether or not it has achieved enough. But their morale really went up in the last 2-3 years when they began to see that so many countries wanted to join. And then they felt we must be doing something right for this kind of recognition to come. And of course, the second point, it is a fact that despite all the divergences that Mr. Habibi pointed out, the fact is there is a great regularity in BRICS holding its summits, its ministerial meetings, and its scores of interactions. If really they didn't bother about why would leaders go and meet, why would the ministers go and meet? So there is very clearly a sense that they have developed common habits of cooperation. And then of course they have promoted the whole cause of the global south. Ambassador has very aptly quoted Foreign Minister Jai Shankar, who often face the criticism that, you are with BRICS, so you are anti-Western. And the answer to that was that please study your history, your geography, your economics, and appreciate the difference that the Western view is presented largely by G7 or NATO. But there is a whole wide world, something like 190 countries. So it is very much a non-Western view. It is a view from the South. It is a view from the emerging economies and their partners. And so it has a legitimate reason to be there. A major thing BRICS has tried to do is to push the agenda of reform, particularly United Nations Security Council. And then there is this other achievement that when you study their communiques, you find that these countries are able to speak in one voice on a lot of controversial regional issues, whether it is Palestine or Afghanistan or Myanmar or anybody else or anything else. So that is a good thing to do. And then there are very concrete achievements. The New Development Bank, of course, I agreed it is a small kind of World Bank, but it is there and it works on the basis of equality. And it does not impose conditions on you when you go to them and ask for the money. Another mechanism, financial mechanism, contingent reserve arrangement or CRA, this has been very successful to make sure that your currencies don't collapse. So that would be very good. And this one is the one that has caused most controversy, financial and banking integration. And I must say that largely it is Western media which has deliberately created this misunderstanding that BRICS is trying to create a common currency. I do not rule out that one or two countries want that. But at no stage ever BRICS has taken a decision in that direction. And the reason is very simple. A regional grouping can have a common currency only when there is a very deep and advanced financial integration. And the only example that I can think of is Euro in the European Union. BRICS is not European Union. It is not supranational body. It is an intergovernmental body where members retain their independence, their sovereignty. So the financial integration in BRICS is not of the kind where you can have a common currency. But the media just does not listen to you. They keep saying, these fellows are meeting, they must be creating a common currency. So please rest assured that India and other moderate countries are very clear. At best, we will work for bilateral trade in national currency. There is nothing wrong with that. But a deliberate strategy to do de-dollarization, reduce the use of dollarization in that sense, or create a common currency is not on board. And therefore, Indonesia should have no worries on this account. In fact, when you come in, and you have come in, and if this is what you want, you will be backing the moderate forces, and that would be very, very good. And then on top of that, there are about 30 mechanisms of BRICS, which are seeking intra-BRICS cooperation, you will have to be ready with a lot of engagement ranging from the chambers of commerce to think tanks to women's parliament and the rest of them. There will be a lot of things happening, and yes, Ambassador is again right. When more people from India will meet more people of Indonesia, the byproduct will be closer bilateral relations. Now let us look at the other side of the ledger. There are challenges. There are challenges, and this is the challenge number one. You know, the position that our friend has taken. BRICS has to work out a strategy to deal with this, and as I explained at CSIS yesterday, India's strategy is very clear and apparent and honest. It is that we want dialogue with everybody, including very much the US. But India would at the same time keep pushing the cause of emerging economies and the global south. We don't see any contradiction between two objectives. We have seen this kind of phenomenon in the past in one form or the other, but that doesn't mean that developing countries should give up their goals and their objectives and their interests. So we have to recognize that the recent years did cause stress in within BRICS. First of all, COVID really derailed a lot of institutions, and the agenda in BRICS suffered. And then there was the border clash between India and China, and of course overall it was the Ukraine conflict which made Russia the target of a large number of the countries from the West. So all that was there, and hopefully it is all behind us, so BRICS can now look to a brighter future. But there is still this dilemma. Do we take in more people quickly, more nations, or do we now first focus on consolidating the unity and cooperation within the grouping? There is also this idea of socialization, that those countries which have been brought in, slowly they must be socialized about the habits and traditions and philosophy of BRICS, which began back in 2006. So India is a believer that go slow on expansion and focus on consolidation of cooperation. And this brings to myself to the last point. Basically, what I have said here is very obvious. The benefits for Indonesia are several. It can BRICS can increase Indonesia's visibility and global role in the world. BRICS can also help Indonesia gaining financial assistance from the new development bank. Thirdly, CRA will also help. And fourthly, intra-BRICS cooperation, of which I am talking about, will undoubtedly be really bringing completely new ideas on technology, on energy transition, on financial cooperation, banking cooperation, and chamber-to-chamber cooperation, and all kinds of new ideas through the think tanks forum. So benefits are many, and the responsibility for Indonesia perhaps will be its contribution to the moderate forces within the grouping, so that BRICS keeps navigating its path between an assertive US and the imperatives for our national interest properly. So as far as I'm concerned, I of course don't speak for the Indian government. There's only one man who speaks for the government of India, my ambassador. But I can say on behalf of the strategic community, there's a great deal of satisfaction and happiness in India that Indonesia has joined BRICS. So thank you so much for giving me your attention, and I pay my tribute once again to the friendly people of Indonesia and the rich culture, and I'm very happy to be back here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Bhatia, for your insightful and very compelling presentation. We've learned a lot today about the history of BRICS, and we've seen that despite the structural and political diversity of its members, BRICS still and has continued to strive as a grouping, as an organization. And while also Ambassador Bhatia have also mentioned there are some challenges faced by the organization, but on the other hand, we've also seen many achievements that BRICS has managed to achieve, including the establishment of NDB as well as an alternative source for financing for the development. And BRICS still has a lot of promise and still has a lot room to grow, and it still has a lot of room to benefit the members as well in the coming years. Even when you compare to the G7, it still has a very optimistic outlook in the future. So now I think I will open the floor for questions and answer sessions. And for those of you joining us online on YouTube, you are also welcome to drop your questions in the chat box. But I think first of all, I think I would like to receive questions from the floor. So if you like to ask, okay, Pak Rene. Yes.
Thank you, Indira. Welcome back, Ambassador Bhatia. My name is Rene Pati Rajawane. By training, I'm a sinologist. By profession, I was working with Compass for 35 years. It's still, in my perspective, that most common, either scholars or the common people, doesn't understand or doesn't give any particular emphasis on what BRICS is. That was number one. Because why? We are now being lived in a divine by a great power competition. So we are talking about great power competition. We're only talking about two countries. Not even India was considered as a great power. And this is actually worrying, because we will not try to think and go into the streamings of these two countries only. And they're competing and increasingly in a very complex geopolitical alliances. Many countries' foreign policies now has gravitated toward a distinctive model of multilateralism, often juxtaposed with Western, especially the Americans, practice of minilateralism. So, are we going to consider, for example, this BRICS as a part of that juxtaposing on a minilateralism? Because you don't want to expand. You mentioned that from several BRICS meetings and summits, there is already 49 something countries who going to join, but even the BRICS themselves, they doesn't want to expand. And on the other hand, I think Beijing is still formally opposes the exclusivity and strategic aims of a US-led minilateralism. Coalitions like the Quad or AUKUS, where India is also being a member of the Quad. And it has simultaneously developed its own flexible approach, labeled here as a Chinese style multilateralism. This model emphasizes institutional expansion, inclusivity, and defensive posturing as a means to enhance China's global influence while restricting attempt at geopolitical containment. So the question is, according to your perspective, Ambassador, is the growing estrangement between the West, particularly the Americans, and the Chinese, is being driven by whom? Is it being driven by the American, or is it being driven by China itself? We never talk about these things. On the second one, I think, how should the US counter China's magnetism to many countries in the global south? What we see is now is what they call it as a reciprocal tariffs that hasn't not been in the textbooks, that has been learning on the academic level. The other one is, whose system of political governance, coefficient of international order, will dominate the 21st century? And regarding to Indonesia-India relations, I think if we go back to the historical of, we're talking about 5,000 years of history on the Indonesia-India relations. It's not just only in the modern context, but also we have the ancient context. That's why we have Buddhist temple here. That's why we have Hindu temple in Indonesia. I think, do you agree that what we've been facing now in this 21st century is already being addressed by President Sukarno in the 60s when he's talking about the new emerging forces? And the only countries among the non-bloc countries, the Asia-Africa Conference countries, is India. India doesn't agree with this new emerging forces. Can you explore more about these things that we need to sit down and then trying to find a formula that can bring back the solidarities, the friendships of our two countries? Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I think in interest of clarity, I'd like to take your observations first, because there are at least 6 different strands concealed in it, and I think it's important and fair to try to touch many of them. In terms of diplomatic definition, minilateral is normally a grouping of 2, 3, maximum 4 countries. And secondly, when we say multilateral, often the purists will say multilateral is only one, which is UN related, which is universal. So if that definition is accepted, then BRICS to my mind would be plurilateral. It began with 4, then became 5 countries, and now it is 11. And sometimes when we look at partner states, we call it BRICS Plus, although formal name is still BRICS, but often media calls it BRICS Plus. So in a way, it is a plurilateral organization, that we can be very clear. With regard to this depiction of the world as only 2 major powers, US and China, we have some difficulties, and not just India. I'm referring to as a scholar. The short point really is that yes, this is the largest economy, this is the second largest economy, there is competition, and we are all seeing and braving the consequences. But the world is today not by polar. It is multipolar. Bipolarity was there in the Cold War period and it went away. Multipolarity began around 2001, particularly 2008 when China's Olympic Games took place. And now with G7 in tatters, multipolarity has gone up even further. So I think for countries like India and Indonesia, it would be proper to recognize that multipolarity is expanding and this is in our interest. Yes, US and China would play still fairly dominating role, but there is role for others. Look at EU. The way EU is turning away from the US and is turning towards India and China, that shows multipolarity. The way Europe could not agree on a common approach on Ukraine shows that there is multipolarity there. They don't agree with US, but they don't agree among themselves as well. So if it is a multipolar world we are living, and it is in our interest to expand those forces, then we must recognize that fact of multipolarity. Then with regard to the question of tariffs, yes, it is at the forefront of everybody's mind. Officials, think tanks, business, media, people. BRICS has not taken a position so far because it has not met. And Rio de Janeiro summit will be the first occasion when this will be discussed at the level of the heads of state. So let us wait and see what they say. But if you go by what they have been saying in the past about fair trade, about WTO and the rest of it, you can be reasonably certain the position that will emerge in Brazil. It would be most likely to favor free and liberal trade, but without any provocation and without any confrontation. That is where diplomacy will have to play a role. Now you brought in this whole question of Bandung and President Sukarno, new forces and what has been happening since then. I'm very happy that in Jakarta there is so much interest in this subject. Yesterday we spent the whole day discussing this very matter at CSIS. In the afternoon we are going to do this at FPIC. I welcome Indonesia's interest. In fact, I wish we would have matched this in Delhi, but regrettably it is not happening. But I would like to share with you one important takeaway of yesterday's dialogue, where two former foreign ministers of Indonesia were present. There are some in Indonesia who feel that the answer is non-aligned movement, that this is the time, there are two powers and all the world should become non-aligned, go back to the NAM of the past. But there is another view, which is that the world has changed, that the world of Bandung and the world of NAM has transformed itself, because it is not bipolar, as I mentioned. NAM was born out of bipolarity. Soviet bloc and the American bloc and non-aligned said, we don't want to be part of your conflict. We will do our own third path. But because we are multipolar today, it is our view that the path forward is not NAM, it is Global South. We have to use the new terms, we have to appreciate what they are. And in very simple terms, my view is that the four countries which led G20 in the last 4 years, starting with the exemplary leadership of Indonesia, followed by India, Brazil, and now South Africa. These four countries have a very special responsibility to gather together, to deepen their coordination, and contribute to the leadership of the Global South. This is what I would like to say. Let us update ourselves. I'm not disrespecting the view that stick to NAM. NAM is still there actually. NAM as a structure, G77 as a structure already exists. But times have changed and we must therefore use the new lingo, new technology, and new thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. We do have a question from our online attendees, but I think I'll take one more from the floor before we go to. Oh, okay, Mas Pitut.
Thank you, Ambassador Rajiv. I think it's a very interesting time to discuss BRICS. I've been asked several times from other diplomats in Indonesia regarding the intention of Indonesia joining BRICS, and it comes to light that as Pak Rene has also mentioned, that BRICS was initiated in 2006, but no one really pay attention too much to the development of the grouping itself. But I think as in recent years, with the conflict and tensions growing with U.S. and China relationship, especially in terms of trade, membership of BRICS. So in this regard, as we know that in terms of a rule-based law organization, BRICS, as we know right now, does not have any ratified treaty or charter. Is that on the horizon coming up? Is there any discussion that is trying to come up with some of formalization of an international organization? And as we can see, declarations during summits is what we know, what the intention of BRICS and goals and directions in each year of its bringing. So that is one question. And now to the other question is the leadership of the RIC. I think Russia, India, and China as the founder members of BRICS, and currently BRICS Plus. Yeah. So we have seen the rise of international organization brought up by Western countries since the end of the World War II. So how do you see India, China, and Russia leading, and also Brazil and South Africa leading the new leadership and new international fora of international organization in the coming years? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very perceptive observations. I think, as you know, with regard to your first question, there is no charter, and I'm not aware of any move to start a very formal, shape to be given to BRICS. There is from time to time talk of setting up a secretariat because the number of countries is growing, but so far it functions as an informal organization through the working group of officials, ministers, and the heads of state and government who meet very, very regularly. And I think they have managed to find it so far, even with regard to the expanded situation. What happens in the future, nobody knows. But I think G20 is another example. They are even bigger than BRICS, and they have managed all these years to work informally. There is a strong feeling among scholars and diplomats that if you want to keep the focus of a grouping on the top leaders, then please don't over formalize it, because the more you formalize, the more UNs you create. And then you know what is happening to the UN. So probably my reading is the next 2-3 years, probably it will go on as informal. With regard to RIC, so RIC actually had to be suspended, around the COVID time. And then once in 2020 the Galwan clash happened, there was no question, you know, India-China relationship was really very, very strained. And it's now the rapprochement is coming up. So BRICS is not led by the trio of Russia, China, India, I can assure you. It was led by 5 countries so far. And those 5 countries have the peculiar dilemma of any club. On the one hand, when they receive a new country, they say, all of us are equal. You are an equal member. But on the other hand, the senior fellows who have been there, who are the founders, they have a natural tendency to come, look, sit down, we'll tell you what we were doing. You know, it is like you're joining a new class and the older boys always welcome you, but somewhat. So I would say that this is where socialization comes into the picture. And in fact, Habibie Center can help a great deal by looking at huge amount of research on BRICS that has taken place, particularly in countries such as India, Brazil, China, Russia, South Africa. The best practical tip would be to pick up one scholar from each country and see how they are presenting the perspectives of BRICS. It will help you because if I picture myself in your position, I can understand Pa's worry also. That at a time when, you know, the 2 big giants are, you know, having all this, is it wise to go and join one group? Is it not better to be non-aligned? But I feel that India is comfortable. India has no problem, and you will find yourself in a very comfortable company. There is no need to worry at all. You don't have to take my word for it, but you have to simply see how the BRICS positions on regional issues, on world issues, on intra-BRICS cooperation, how much they match with the needs of Indonesian foreign policy. So I'm not here to sell BRICS to you, but I'm here to understand your worries, and the best way to resolve those worries is to study it a bit deeper, and then you will discover yourself that much of what BRICS has been doing in the last 4 or 5 years matches with and complements the basic tenets of the Indonesian foreign policy.
Okay. Thank you, Your Excellency. Due to time constraint, I think we only, I'll just take one short questions from the floor, and also we do have one question from our online audience. So maybe I'll relay the our online audience questions first, and then we go to take one short, very brief question from the floor. So we do have a question from Madhav Prasad. The question is, how can Indonesia leverage BRICS as a periphery country and deal efficiently with global hegemons like Russia and China? I fear that alignment with Russia under Prabowo will recreate a military dictatorship. So that was the question from our online audience, and maybe we'll take a short question from the floor. Oh, yes, Mr. Ambassador. Sorry.
Yeah, I think this is, you know, clearly a question which shows some insecurities, and insecurities, the best way to deal with them is to expend one's knowledge. I completely understand. It's such a new body, and as you said earlier, when it was set up and it was developing, nobody was bothered. We were not a member, so why bother about BRICS meeting here, there, and everywhere? But it'll be a good idea to study. There is no need to worry at all, in my view, that Indonesia, you know, will have some import of ideas from Russia on domestic governments. I mean, this is something very inconceivable to me. I think Indonesia is marching forward very nicely and confidently on the path of democracy. I wish you best of luck. You have, through a proper constitutional methodology, decided to join BRICS as a big country, as probably number 3 country in Asia. You have a big role to play, and I have no doubt that with the support of the research scholars of Habibie Center and others, Indonesia would be in a good position to play that role.
Thank you so much. And I think this brings us to the end of our roundtable discussion today. I would like to thank Ambassador Bhatia, Ambassador Chakravorti, and also Dr. Ilham Habibie for, and also our distinguished guests for taking the time to join us and engage in this important discussion. And before, oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry, that was my mistake. Mr. Ambassador, would you like to, ask a question? Yes, please. I'm sorry, my apologies.
No, thank you. My question just takes off from what you said in answer to the previous question about the leadership of the Global South by Indonesia, India, Brazil and South Africa. In that context, I'm very curious to know that what happened to the IPSA process? It has become very dormant. And if what you said will work, then why don't we look at Indonesia joining IPSA? Because then, 4 democracies, leading democracies of the world, giving leadership to the Global South. What are your views on that? And would there be interest in Indonesia to join IPSA? But I don't even know how IPSA is doing, and is there an interest within IPSA?
So IPSA was a thriving organization in the first decade of this century. And just to go back to that story which I was narrating to you about China planning to join IPSA and then was not accepted, and then they created from BRICS. Then what was done was that BRICS slowly also took over all the methods of working of IPSA. And obviously then people felt that BRICS is a bigger body, and so we should carry on with that. But Ambassador has just read my mind, because I have on a number of occasions recommended elsewhere that in order to update ourselves, actually IPSA is a body which should invite Indonesia to join it. Indonesia's coming in will impart energy and strength to IPSA, and it will really show the share of power from Asia. So India and Indonesia from here, Brazil from Latin America, South Africa from Africa. And I think once again it is up to research scholars of Indonesia to study this and perhaps build a case as to how, in the light of Indonesia joining BRICS, if Indonesia considers joining IPSA, it will be very logical and it will further strengthen Indonesia's interstate relations. But again, it is something eventually IPSA countries have to decide, but they only would be in a position to invite you if they were to detect interest on part of Indonesia. So these are all somewhat complex matters, but I'm very happy that Habibie Center is taking initiative to look at all the possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My apologies, Mr. Ambassador, for earlier. Yes, due to our time constraint, unfortunately, this brings us to the end of our roundtable discussion today. And before we end the session, I would like to invite Ambassador Bhatia, if you would like to say a few or 2 minutes closing remarks, please.
Actually, only 1 minute. I know your time constraint. I just want to sincerely thank Habibie Center for creating this opportunity. I think for a scholar, there is nothing better than coming and sharing whatever little he knows. And I'm particularly grateful to the ambassador who, along with you, thought of this idea. And I must thank my wife who helped me to make this PPT in flat 2 days, and a young researcher from Gateway House. So wonderful to meet all of you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. So I would like to thank Ambassador Bhatia for his insightful presentation and also very insightful remarks as well, and Ambassador Chakravorti and also Dr. Ilham Habibi for their valuable contributions. I would also like to thank our distinguished guests for taking the time to join us and engage in this important and timely discussion. So before I close this session, I would like to invite Mr. Ambassador, also Dr. Ilham Habibi, to take a quick picture along with our guests as well, I believe. Yes, maybe, yes, stand up, or I think just right over here.